Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for dropping in. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the top 5 regrettable legendary champions that I fully built out and used in my entire raid career over both my accounts. Coincidentally, they are all on one account and it's on my first account. So I'm going to go over that in this video, and it's more so of just like a discussion thing, not so much about the champions themselves, but you guys can use your own judgment to, obviously make your own conclusions about whether the champion is worth building and investing in yourselves. But based on the circumstances that I was in, they are completely my most regrettable moments in this game. So let's jump right into it. All right, so in this roster here, let's look up my first regrettable legendary, and it's going to be Bambis Fourleaf. So Bambis Fourleaf was a fusion, and you know what was appealing about him actually is his A1. It brings a decreased speed on one enemy, but there's a condition that allows it to place the decreased speed to basically all enemies. So Bambis is supposed to be a decent Hydra champion. Even if you completely ignore his sleep debuff, his sleep passive here, which is kind of weird. Basically, he is like a sponge for debuffs, and then he has like a transfer mechanic where he transfers the debuffs to the enemy. But anyways, even if you completely ignore his passive and just take him for face value, with a conditional AoE, decreased speed, he has a 4-turn AoE that brings a shield to your team, as well as a increase and decrease duration. It's not too bad of a support. He also brings the increased accuracy, increased attack. This enfeeble stuff doesn't really work. It's more for arena, for example. The thing is, both of his abilities are on 4-turn cooldowns, and it's just way too long. First of all, a 4-turn cooldown buff is way too long, and a 4-turn cooldown recovery is way too long, and then the conditional decreased speed makes this a little bit too difficult to make work. He does bring a decent, it's like an epic level HP in all battles, but it took 4, 8, 11 books. I put 11 books into it. I literally used them for one Hydra run, and I was like, this isn't working out for me. And he's been sitting in my vault ever since. Basically, I had him in pretty good gear. I had him in a Guardian set. I had him with proper accuracy, decent speed, was doing like brutal Hydra or something, but he just wasn't able to properly support the team with shields or buffs or place his AoE decrease speed properly. So to me, Bambis is definitely sunk cost at this point. And definitely topping in at one of my top 5 regrettable legendaries for sure. All right, so up next we have Mr. Narog here, Mr. Narog himself. So Narog, I did use him for a little bit. I pulled him, I used him. He has this AoE block buffs on a 3-turn cooldown, but an epic level Ugo also brings the block buff with the decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. So literally the same move with decreased defense, and Narog is a legendary. You could argue that Narog is not a very good legendary to invest in at all, but I still invested in him to use him for basically his passive, which basically gives your team increased survivability. So I figured I could use him to maybe keep my team alive just through his passive and whatnot. But his kit is just so empty. There's just nothing going on with his kit. He's such a old champion. He needs a massive update. He needs this to be, I don't know what he needs on this, but he needs a massive update in his kit. He's just a plain, very generic legendary. Definitely somebody that I regret maxing out. Obviously, I put books into him, maxed him out, masteries on him. And, I built him to help do some work, probably in Doom Tower against some bosses, mainly for his passive. But just his passive is not enough. So he tops in definitely in my top 5 most regrettable legendary champions. I mean, it would be arguable whether he would be helpful to even a newer player. I mean, just based off of his base stats is not particularly impressive. His kit literally could be a epic level champion at this point. He's definitely been power crept, but even at the time that I built him, he was not overly usable or useful. So definitely one of my biggest regrets in this game. All right, so coming up next, we have another champion that is arguably really bad, but somehow I invested resources into her. Warmother, fully booked Warmother, guys. 9 books into her. No masteries, but I was ready to go. And you know what I was using her for? I was using her for Bommel. Bommel was such a massive roadblock for my account. I literally could not get through Bommel for the life of me. I didn't have Geomancer. I didn't have Vogos. I had to use all sorts of healing combinations. I used multiple Vrass. I used like Master Butcher and all that stuff. And you know what? Warmother was the last resort. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to max her out. I'm going to use her in Bommel because bombs are going to be the thing that works against her. Maybe I can get lucky. The thing is with Warmother is that she's magic affinity and Bommel is force affinity, at least in the rotation that I was fighting Bommel in. And Warmother just wasn't effective at placing the bombs. Basically, the weak hits just wasn't worth it. She didn't deal enough damage in the end. And you know, I can't find another use case for this champion outside of trying to cheese out Bommel with some big damage with the bombs. So I basically used her for like 1 or 2 runs and I said, forget it, it's not going to work. And yeah, she's been relegated to the vault ever since. So this is a legendary that I completely regret. I've got literally 0 value from her, even though I invested books, 6'd her and everything, fully ascended. But yeah, definitely one of my most regrettable champions that I fully built. So definitely don't jump into that. If you guys find a use case for her, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it so I can actually put out some content on her. But right now she's just sitting in my vault. She's ready to go, but she's got nothing to go after. All right, coming up next, we got Mr. Nari the Lucky. So Nari the Lucky here, you see he's actually fully geared still. He's actually got some pretty decent gear on, some Relentless set. He's about 250 speed, about 320 accuracy. No full masteries at least, but he is fully booked. You got 4 books here, you got 5 here, and then you got 4 here for a total of 13 books. 13 books into this champion. He's absolutely no good, guys. He's no good. He's got decreased accuracy, decreased resistance on a 3-turn cooldown here. He's got a 4-turn AoE provoke with a self counterattack, and then he has some buff stealing on his passive. This provoke needs to be a 3-turn to be useful against Hydra, which is where I used him in. I put him in for a 5-star Brimstone, which is useful because obviously at that time I didn't have many Brimstones that were big, so a 5-star Brimstone is useful. And this move that has decreased resistance, I explained in another video that any champion that has a decreased resistance ability, basically you are targeting a champ, like for this to be super useful, you're targeting a champion with crazy resistance. And basically for you to debuff a crazy resistance champion, you need crazy accuracy yourself. So any move that has decreased resistance, or that is the role, or that's the role of that move, basically needs decreased resistance to be irresistible, so you don't have to stack crazy accuracy yourself to make it work. That's how I see it working. But anyways, this move doesn't really help that much, and his provoke is not on a 3-turn cooldown or faster, so it's definitely not going to be useful. If he had A1 provoke and then it paired up with the counterattack, maybe we can talk about it, like similar to like Islan, like Stragos Islan, then maybe his kit gets a little bit better. But instead his A1 pairs with his passive, and it's going to go along the stealing and swapping of buffs and all that stuff. So that's the theme of him, but definitely a regrettable champion on my end. I used him for 1 run, made a video on him, and I was not impressed at all. Left him in his current form. Like I said, he's geared pretty decent, but I was not impressed, and I basically vaulted him right away. So not super happy with him. Hopefully you guys don't build him up as well. All right, guys. Finally, we have the last champion here that counts as a kind of a regret for me. Not Mother Cybele. It's actually Elenaro. Elenaro here, actually, her biggest appeal is actually A1 HP burn, and it's irresistible, but she doesn't require books. So I booked her out. You see here, I booked her out. Didn't put masteries on her, luckily, but I booked her out that was a regrettable action on my part. And then obviously you want to use her for HP burn against bosses, for example. But I didn't end up using her in any application because I didn't really need her to place an irresistible HP burn. By the time I was tackling Eternal Dragon, for example, I had Lydia already, so Eternal Dragon would get her revive blocked, and I didn't have any poison set up, team setups available for Elenaro, so she just wasn't utilized fully on my part. So it's definitely a regrettable action, booking her out and then not being able to use her. So I should have planned a little bit better before booking her out, and then finding a team or situation where I wanted to use her so I can book, so it makes sense to book her out for these poison explosions. But that's kind of a fault on mine, not so much on the champion. I think she's still a very good champion with the irresistible HP burn on the A1. No books, no books needed. So definitely worth considering. Better champion than some of the champions on this list, obviously. But yeah, definitely a regrettable action booking her on my part, at least. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the video. So that's the top 5 regrettable legendaries that I invested in over my raid career. Let me know in the comments below what your top 5 or top regrettable champion that you built on your account will be in the comments below. And we can have a discussion about that. Hopefully, you know, I can steer some of you away from building out some of these champions from my own experience. But these champions were probably, you know, general consensus, they're probably not very good to begin with, but obviously I did fully invest in them and I didn't get much value out of them, unfortunately. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys in the next video.